The rapidly spiraling Donald Trump finally addressed the fact that poll after poll after poll after poll shows Vice President Harris dominating him in the 2024 election in the form of a deranged Truth Social rant that we have to talk about and take delight in. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. All right, friends. Donald Trump has said and done some really stupid, unhinged things in the past 24, 48, 72 hours, maybe even longer than that. I mean, my God, he was recently ranting repeatedly that the vice president was using artificial intelligence to totally fake the crowds which showed up at the Detroit Metro Airport. There's no way she could get that many crowds. It's all AI. She AI'd it. Even though it's been debunked time and time again, and MAGA Republicans are coming out going, please, Donald, shut up. Well, he finally addressed the fact that the vast majority of the polls which have been released in the past week have not been good for him. They show the vice president either taking the lead nationally, taking the lead in swing states, or closing the gap in areas that Trump should be dominating. And this is how he responded on Truth Social. The New York Times Siena poll has way oversampled Democrat voters and way undersampled people who voted for me in 2020. The fake news York Times insisted that they do this so it would look as bad as possible in comparison to their last poll, which was very good for me, way up, and made the very biased Times look stupid, just like in 2016. I'm actually up on the San Francisco liberal, despite all crooked media. She would destroy America just like she destroyed San Francisco. So, again, not for the first time, Donald Trump is insisting that all the polls are fake and the crowds are fake and he's actually winning and it was a conspiracy by the New York Times to make him look bad. Hilarious idea, the idea that the New York Times is so liberally biased that they're actually manufacturing polls to make Trump look worse, when in many New York Times polls, famously, President Biden, when he was a presumptive Democratic nominee, was made to look terrible. Then Trump says, well, actually, no, those are good polls. When it favors me, the polls are good and valid and accurate. When the polls favor anybody else, well, then obviously they're fake. He has a child's understanding of just how the world works. What he's referring to is a poll that we've talked about in recent videos. It was recently released about 3 days ago. And the headline in the New York Times, Harris leads Trump in 3 key states, Times Siena poll finds. New surveys of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania taken this week offered the latest indication of a dramatic reversal in standing for the Democratic Party since President Biden abandoned his reelection bid. I want to look at some of the crosstabs in particular here because they do please me immensely. So let's do a comparison here of attributes between the two candidates, right? So we know from the top lines that she's beating him in this highly reputable poll in 3 states that Trump desperately needs to try to win, particularly Pennsylvania. Let's set that aside. Let's go look at some of the crosstabs. For each of the following, please tell me if this describes Kamala Harris very well, somewhat well, not too well, or not at all well. As will bring about the right kind of change. 30% say very well, all the way down to 37% not at all well. But if you look at net well, so between those who say very well, somewhat well, versus net not well, not too well, not at all well, net well versus not well, 50%, more Americans than not, say that the vice president would bring about the right kind of change the country needs compared to 48%. But it's close, right? More Americans than not, but it's close. Let's keep going because these questions are also asked for Trump as well. What about the vice president's temperament? Well, 54% say, a clear majority, say that she has the right kind of temperament to be president, whereas only 43% say she doesn't. What about intelligent? Is the vice president intelligent? 65%, a decisive, sweeping majority of Americans say, yes, the vice president is intelligent, whereas a little less than a third say, no, she's not. What about has a clear vision for the country? 53%, yes, that describes the vice president well, compared to 44%. These are pretty good numbers. Ooh, what about honest? Politicians have a reputation for being dishonest. Well, 52% say honest is a word that describes the vice president well, compared to 44%. Close, but really not too close. What about these questions for Donald Trump? Will bring about the right kind of change. Only 47% say that Donald Trump would bring about the right kind of change, whereas a majority, 52%, say he would not. What about temperament? Does Donald Trump have the temperament to be president? 45% say yes, he does, but 54%, again, a clear majority, say he doesn't. That's not good. Ooh, intelligent. Okay. Well, Donald Trump manages, by the grace of God, and this is how you know this poll is not really cruel to Donald Trump, because if it were if it were as bad as he says it was, this number would be dramatically lower. A majority of Americans, 56%, say Donald Trump is intelligent enough to be president. I personally disagree, but here's proof, Donald, that the whole thing isn't totally against you. Although I will note that by 9 percentage points, the vice president is seen as more intelligent, or more voters in these key swing states think that the vice president is intelligent compared to Donald Trump. So I suppose it's still not that great for him. What about a clear vision for the country? Well, 60% say yes, Donald Trump does have a clear vision for the country, compared to 40%, 39% that say they don't. Okay. Now, there's no value judgment in there. It's a clear vision. I would argue it's dystopian, perhaps apocalyptic, but a majority of Americans, a decisive, say that he has a clear vision for the country. What about honesty? Is Donald Trump honest? 41% say, yeah, honesty describes Donald Trump well. I would love to have conversations with the members of this 41% constituency. But of course, where it gets really brutal is 58%, nearly 60% say that term does not describe Donald Trump well. The problem is it's not just the polls, right? That poll was clearly favorable for the vice president, as many have been, but swing state voters as well, people who have been polled or talked to in focus groups, even those who have voted for Trump and Republicans in the past, it's not looking well for Donald.
Wisconsin and its 10 electoral votes could be decisive in November. So we want to take some time to listen to what voters there have to say, especially in the swingiest of voters in the swingiest of states. These are Wisconsinites who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020. Here they are weighing in on Vice President Kamala Harris taking over the Democratic ticket. Many say they're feeling some Barack Obama vibes.
I think she's similar because she's confident in what she says, but she's not egotistical. She's compassionate on the way she speaks and the way she delivers things.
I feel like I could probably get into a really good conversation with both of them, and they would actually listen.
When she talks, she does it with a sense of authority, and that means a lot.
Our thanks to Rich Tao and Engages for that. 8 of the 12 voters in the group say they'll vote for Harris. 1 would vote for Trump, 2 for RFK. 1 won't vote. I think what's fascinating when you listen, look, it's focus groups. We talk about polls being a snapshot in time. This is a snapshot of 12 people who voted specific ways in 16 and 20. 4 of the 12 said they plan not to vote for Biden and will now vote for Harris. I guess the question that I've had throughout is this a durable shift and a tangible shift, or is this just the moment we're in?
I think it is all three. I think it is the moment. I think Democrats are feeling optimistic again because they have a person at the top of the ticket that they feel can actually go out and make the case against Trump, something that, yes, people in D.C.
Yeah. So again, folks, you have this. You have a bipartisan sample of swing state voters. Again, a state that Trump needs to win, Wisconsin, people who are open to voting for him or were open to voting for him in the past, people who did vote for him. And they're saying, it doesn't look good for him. This is Trump's fault. This is the candidate's fault. He had so many institutional and political advantages, as we've discussed in video after video after video, and he's squandering them because he's an idiot, a malignant narcissist, a pathological liar who refuses to accept the facts. The first step in solving a problem is recognizing that a problem exists and getting all the way back to what Donald said on Truth Social. He doesn't accept the polls publicly and probably privately. Maybe deep down, he can rally enough of his double-digit IQ to recognize that there is evidence that he's going to lose this election, but he's in a state of denial about it. This is just me psychoanalyzing. But how can he possibly address the problem when he refuses to recognize a problem exists and ignores all the abundant evidence that a problem exists? Bad poll, bad poll, bad poll. All the polls are fake. Okay, that same pollster says something good about you. Okay, well then the poll is good. Next week it says something bad. Okay, the poll was bad. He refuses to recognize the reality, which, quite frankly, is good for the rest of us who want him to lose very badly. Let me know what you think in the comments.